If it feels like COVID-19's been making the rounds of people you know, you felt correctly. We're taking your questions to health experts for answers on this variant that seems a lot more contagious yet far less severe. Douglas County puts a happy spin on its idea to seize land from Denver in retaliation for the city's gun laws. A next viewer, who happened to have led the team picking the spot for DIA in the 80s, explains why it was built in an area that people now call Tornado Alley. Big rain monsoons could help alleviate our water crisis, if only we knew when they were going to happen. NCAR Boulder has an idea. And Pride on the big screen.
This is a scripted version of the story of Trex.
The story of an iconic spot for Denver's LGBTQ community. Show of hands from everyone out there who has not had COVID. Not many hands anymore. Fortunately, this latest surge is more of an annoyance than a danger, though we do know that long COVID is going to be a lingering issue for some who get it. Others out there are wondering how soon they can catch it again. At the rate that the latest variant's been spreading, our Nusha Roy was curious too, so she started gathering some answers.
If you're in the throes of it, at the beginning or end of your latest COVID journey, we started wondering, when can you be infected again? In general, infectious disease specialists say you're unlikely to be infected again within 3 months. But there are reports after having Omicron, some people were infected as soon as 2 to 4 weeks later. They also said vaccinated individuals had higher protection against reinfection, but for both situations, the numbers are small.
What we're seeing with Omicron in general is more mild infection than we saw with previous variants. And then with subsequent infections or infection after vaccination, we see less severe disease.
If you're like so many of us relying on at-home tests, how accurate are they at catching variants versus the original strain?
The exact same tests that we started out a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we were just getting these home tests, but they are effective at picking up these new variants, more specifically the Omicron variant.
The tests use a highly conserved part of the virus genetic sequence for detection, so the mutations haven't impacted this. But remember, at-home tests are less sensitive than PCR tests. So how do you approach isolation when everyone in your home is falling sick at different times?
If another person gets sick in the household, their countdown starts the day they have symptoms.
It doesn't extend the first person's isolation, in part because they have some natural immunity.
So specifically for isolation, this countdown is from when you first start having symptoms or you're testing positive. Right now, the guidance is you could stop isolating after 5 full days if you don't have those symptoms anymore. You wear a mask for another 5 days. The state health department says it's not required. You can test again at that point, but if you are still positive, they're suggesting it might be a good idea to still isolate for that full 10-day period. And I have personally been reading up on this a lot. Some of those questions were my own because I am out of the COVID, the depths of COVID over the last 2 weeks is why I kind of disappeared for a little bit. But had to revisit so many of the things that we were talking about because I thought I had dodged it for 2.5 years and then it popped up in our house.
And you know, and I think for the people out there who have been fortunate enough, like myself, to have avoided it so far,
right.
You know, even if we're not really worried about feeling crummy for a couple of weeks, long COVID, though, is still a concern.
Yeah, and you know what? There's so much research to be done. Doctors aren't entirely sure exactly who is susceptible yet, right? Because they've seen it in severe cases, they've seen it in mild cases. They're saying the vaccines are helping, but we know it's a thing. So Colorado actually has a new state law that is setting aside money to take a look at our hospitals and our clinics to say, are we equipped to handle long COVID and the health issues that are coming with it, because they know this is going to manifest in some people over time. And so there's a lot of information with the state health department to kind of navigate what to look for. And one of the many questions my family's been wondering ourselves.
Yeah, so they don't get caught flat-footed.
Exactly.
Right. Anusha, thank you. So our statewide positivity rate gives you an idea of how the virus is circulating, is sitting around 12% for the last 10 days or so. We have not been below the 5% in control threshold since about mid-April. We're getting an idea of just how expensive it would be for Douglas County to follow through on its idea to seize Daniels Park from the city of Denver. That land grab was proposed by a Republican county commissioner this week in retaliation for Denver's gun laws. Daniels Park is one of Denver's 22 mountain parks, like Red Rocks and Genesee Park along I-70. It's city-owned land that's outside of Denver. The 1,000 acres of Daniels Park, with its bison herd and its Native American ceremony grounds, has been owned by the city of Denver for a century. A Dougco commissioner doesn't like that Denver recently passed a ban on concealed carry in parks. This ban, by the way, is not being enforced yet. If Dougco does convince a court to allow Douglas County to seize the land through eminent domain, Douglas County would have to pay fair market value to Denver. Denver Parks and Rec Director Scott Gilmore told me that he's been talking to some real estate people who pegged the fair market value of that enormous parcel at $800 million. For perspective, the entire annual budget of Douglas County is about $500 million. Today, the Douglas County Commissioner stood behind that idea proposed by Republican Commissioner George Teal, but they did not answer our specific questions about it. They did issue a written statement saying, quote, "We are pleased to start conversations with our elected counterparts in Denver as to what it would look like for Douglas County to potentially own and maintain this park in the future. This is the place to start, and any speculations on what could occur as a result of discussions would be premature. Our focus is on a potential win-win for Denver, Douglas County, and all stakeholders associated with the park." Newly released court documents today show the far-right extremist group the Proud Boys had a plan to occupy U.S. Capitol buildings during the January 6th insurrection. The name of their plan mirrors the language used that day by Colorado's Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. The Proud Boys called their occupation strategy 1776 Returns. The morning of the attempted coup, Congresswoman Boebert tweeted, "Today is 1776. Her office did not respond to our questions today about whether she ever knew about the Proud Boys' 1776 Returns plan. The strategy outlined in court documents was for inside operators, dubbed Patriots, to let Proud Boys inside government buildings in D.C., where they planned to occupy those buildings by force until they were granted a redo of the 2020 election." We're getting some feedback tonight about DIA's seeming propensity to attract tornadoes. Meteorologist Chris Bianchi taught us last night that since the airport opened in 1995, at least 5 tornadoes have touched down on or near DIA's property. Since 1975, 26 tornadoes have touched down within 5 miles of what is now the airport. And that's more than airport properties in tornado-prone places like Dallas, Oklahoma City, and Wichita. After Chris's story aired here, we heard from Skip Spenceley, who was once the director of the new airport office. They were in charge of selecting the new site for DIA when it was proposed in the 80s. Skip says they heard a lot of concerns when they were talking about the possible site, that it was in Tornado Alley. He says when they actually did the research, talked to a meteorologist, looked at a half-century worth of tornado records, they concluded that the current site of DIA was no more tornado-prone than any other part of the Eastern Plains.
We consulted with the FAA throughout this process. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that's responsible for the Weather Service, with the National Center for Atmospheric Research, that is probably the world-renowned atmospheric science institution. And all of those people told us that they did not see that that was a problem with respect to siting the airport where we sited it. And in the final analysis, even the Airline Pilots Association said they would much rather be there than at Stapleton, because ironically, it was weather and the configuration of the old airport that was one of the motivating factors for moving to the new site.
We always welcome expertise from experts we might not have thought of who just happen to be watching next. Skip says to his knowledge there was no pushback on the proposed site from meteorologists or researchers. A lot of the concern was coming from people who did not want the airport moved out from Stapleton. Skip says that they were looking at 7 sites back in the 1980s, all in the northeastern portion of the metro area. He says the airport, they felt, couldn't be further west because of I-70 and the foothills, and they wanted to make sure that they placed it out east enough that there was enough space to develop around the airport, as is being done right now. There are families in Denver's Montbello neighborhood who struggle to put food on the table. There are kids in that neighborhood who want summer work, not just for fun money, but to help provide for their families. So I want to tell you about some people who are working to solve both of those challenges at once. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign this week supports the Montbello Farm School Network. It's a project of the nonprofit Montbello Organizing Committee. The network consists of 8 school-based farms and then the Montbello Urban Farm. Each year, they turn out more than 10,000 pounds of fresh produce that goes to food pantries right there in the neighborhood. Then in the summer months, young people are employed to work on the farm. The head of the nonprofit behind the project was telling me recently about a young man who came in and asked if they might be able to get paid bi-weekly instead of monthly. His family needed the paycheck in order to make ends meet. So that young man gets a job. His community, including his family if they need it, they get fresh produce at no cost to them through community food pantries. It's a smart program. It's the kind of thing that I thought that you would want to get behind. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get a link to donate. We know that even $5 makes a difference, so I'll match the first 50 people who donate $5. In a neighborhood of Denver where jobs and fresh food are needed, the Montbello Farm School Network is providing both. A next viewer wondered what was up with this custom license plate. What's up with it is it's illegal. Monsoons could be a big help to knock down the drought. Only problem is they're super hard to predict. Until now. And a safe haven for Denver's LGBTQ community for decades. Soon going to get the big screen treatment. That's next. Was anybody else out there a license plate nerd when they were younger, or maybe also as an adult? I'm kind of guilty on both counts of that, because license plates are just endless entertainment and historical research. A next viewer spotted one that I had never seen before. Christy saw this plate on the way home from work. She told us, she's kind of into license plates, but she had never seen one like this before. Take a good look. This is odd. Here's what you're looking at. That's an anti-government extremist thing. That is a sovereign citizen license plate. We turn to the expertise of Mark Bikavich, a senior research fellow with the Center on Extremism at the Anti-Defamation League. He had previously identified that as a common plate used by sovereign citizens, the folks who claim to be exempt from U.S. law, like taxes and law enforcement. A group of sovereign citizens in Colorado were actually indicted in 2017 on charges that they had been harassing elected officials with a ton of fake legal documents, like warrants for their arrest.
Mother Nature certainly bringing the heat today. Hopefully the Avs out there at Ball Arena doing the same tonight. The city all lit up, excited about this evening. Temperatures soaring into the upper 80s, into the lower 90s this afternoon. Hot up to the eastern plains with some 70s up in the mountains. Tonight on HD Doppler 9. Not a lot going on out there. Tough to really find any cloud cover, too. Unfortunately, with the light winds, all that sunshine, we will be monitoring some high levels of ozone up and down the I-25 corridor throughout much of the day tomorrow. A little bit of haze, so kind of keep that in mind. And that really is going to be the theme as we go throughout the next couple of days as this ridge of high pressure continues to build in closer to Colorado. That's going to allow the heat to really ramp up too, looking ahead toward Friday and through the weekend. But this storm system off to the west, that actually will help usher in some southwesterly winds and also a little bit of rain too. We'll be talking about some subtropical moisture coming in for the weekend. Not the case tomorrow as daytime highs soar back into the 90s, triple digits in Lamar with some 70s and low 80s up in the mountains. So close to 100 for us on Friday, and right now I am tracking a good chance of storms Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of next week.
What's this Avs thing that Danielle was talking about? No, it's okay. They haven't dropped the puck yet on Game 1, actually. You can watch this next story, then flip over and watch Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. You won't miss a thing. If Colorado's water managers knew when big monsoon rains were coming, well, they could hold back water in the reservoirs. But predicting monsoons is tricky. Till now. Meteorologist Corey Reppenhaken caught up with scientists at NCAR in Boulder.
In most summers, a shift in the wind pattern called a monsoon brings consistent rain to parts of the desert southwest, including Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Utah, and the southwest part of Colorado. The rainfall from the summer monsoon can really help water managers plan, but it would have to be predicted months in advance.
So they have to make water management decisions in April. Like this is even before the peak of the runoff from the snowpack, and they have to decide how will they use the runoff during the summer season.
Andreas Prine with NCAR in Boulder says rainfall has very little impact on water levels in our reservoirs, but if they knew there was going to be a big monsoon coming in the summer, they could release less water in the spring. But he says the monsoon is very inconsistent and erratic.
Currently, they don't have any skillful prediction for summer monsoon, so they have to make basically a blind prediction of how much rain will they get in the summer.
So Prine and his team developed a new method for predicting the monsoon. Their forecast modeling keys in on changes in the low-level moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and East Pacific. He tested the accuracy of his new method against historical forecasts, and he says his was far superior to any other monsoon predictions. He hopes that this new method will not only help water managers in the future, but also wildfire managers. It's already predicting slightly above average rainfall this summer.
New Mexico is bone dry. It's really, really dry. Arizona is a similar situation. And we had massive fires already this season. So having a wet monsoon season on the horizon, I'm really hopeful that this will help with the fire risk in those two states.
Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen, 9 News.
This is moving fast in terms of science. The Bureau of Reclamation, which manages water and power in the West, is going to evaluate that methodology out in the field in the Colorado River and Rio Grande basins this year. Tracing the line of Denver's LGBTQ history takes you through tracks.
A lot of that LGBTQ history hasn't been told, and I think Tracks is a place that a lot of that happened.
A filmmaker wants to tell the story to Coloradans who have never stepped on the dance floor. Next. There are Pride Month celebrations across Colorado right now. It's always Pride at Tracks. The now iconic LGBTQ club has an unusual backstory, one that caught the eye of a filmmaker from Denver.
A lot of that LGBTQ history hasn't been told, and I think Tracks is a place that a lot of that happened and a lot of people came and were doing life together. Tracks is a nightclub based here in Denver that's been running for 40 years, and it started as a gay nightclub back in the 1980s.
Starting a gay nightclub in Denver in 1980 is just a crazy story.
When Marty Chernoff passed away, who is the owner and founder of Tracks here in Denver, they wanted somebody to do a memorial video for him, and so they hired our team to do it. So we ended up turning that memorial video into a documentary. Here's the doc. Marty is a straight white Jewish businessman. He realized there was need for a community like this, and so that's when he started Tracks with a group of LGBTQ people. I just realized it was a bigger story than just a short doc, and so I started work on a feature film. So the screenplay is based on the true stories. This part of the script is based on the true story of just like they put up this sign, if you can't tolerate everyone you come in contact with, Tracks isn't the place for you. And Marty was like, oh, what? Like, you have to change that. And we were like, what? What's wrong with it? And he was like, do you like being tolerated? He made them go back and change the sign so it said accept instead of tolerate. As an ally, he very much made the space and then got out of the way. And I think that's an important story to be told during any times where people are being oppressed and coming up and fighting for their own rights. Like, it's a sweet story, it's a powerful story, and it's a really fun ride.
Sean and her team are currently casting for the main roles, and they plan to shoot the whole film in Colorado starting next spring. So young people get jobs, their neighbors get food. Everybody wins with your help. That and your feedback next. We're working on a few problems at once in this week's Word of Thanks campaign. The Montbello neighborhood in Denver needs better access to fresh food. There are families there who worry about where their next meal is going to come from. And there are young people looking for summer jobs to support their families. So here comes the Montbello Urban Farm. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to join me in supporting this nonprofit project that turns out 10,000 pounds of fresh produce each year to stock food pantries in Montbello. It provides jobs for young people. Just one of the food access projects of the Montbello Organizing Committee. They can do more of that good work with our help. Katie writes in about Douglas County talking about seizing Daniels Park from Denver, says, I don't love seeing my tax dollars at work in this way. Is it possible to find out what gets spent on this? And Sam writes, governing by pettiness is something.